You can stand in the back like a stray dog all night, but your father is signing everything over to me before they cut the cake. So try not to ruin the photographs." Alana smoothed the front of her custom silk gown and walked away, heading straight for the center of her $100,000 vow renewal party. I swallowed the anger rising in my throat and stared at her back. She wore a diamond necklace bought with my father's drained retirement accounts. She smiled at the wealthy guests, playing the perfect, loving wife. She thought she had already won. She thought she was about to take my father for every penny he had left. But when my dad married Alana, I kept the $40 million my late grandfather left me a secret. It was the smartest decision I ever made. I pressed my shoulders against the cool wall of the Scottsdale Country Club and waited near the exit. She had no idea she was walking blindly into a trap. To understand exactly why I was about to detonate her entire life in front of 200 people, you have to know what she threw in the trash 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I walked into my childhood home and found my mother's entire legacy stuffed inside heavy black garbage bags. I work as an emergency room trauma nurse. At 38 years old, I spend my days stabilizing severe injuries and managing frantic, irrational families. I deal with blood and chaos for a living. I am trained to compartmentalize trauma and focus purely on stopping the hemorrhage. But the sight of my mother's irreplaceable photo albums, her handwritten recipe boxes, and the quilt she knitted before she died, all stacked next to the kitchen trash cans, broke right through my clinical armor. Alana stood in the living room, directing 2 hired movers to clear the space for her new collection of imported leather furniture. I dropped my keys on the counter, stepped in front of the movers, and demanded an explanation. She turned around and let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Oh, please," she sighed, rolling her eyes. "How old are you? Clinging to these dusty rags your mother has been dead for a decade. Are you trying to turn this house into a haunted shrine? You are just bitter that your father finally has a real woman in his bed, while you are rotting away in scrubs, smelling like bleach and spinsterhood." My father's relatives and his longtime golf buddies sat right there on the new couches. They watched her disrespect my dead mother. They watched her humiliate me in the home I grew up in. Not a single one of them stood up. My aunt leaned over and patted my arm, her eyes darting nervously toward Alana. "Just let it go. Daisy," she whispered. "She means well. Do not upset your father. His blood pressure is already high today." The cowards in the room made my stomach turn. They were terrified of becoming Alana's next target. So they gladly offered me up as a human shield. They wanted me to absorb the abuse so they could continue enjoying the free drinks and the country club access my father provided. I grabbed the garbage bags, hauled them to my car in total silence, and drove away. They thought I was retreating in defeat. They had no idea I was just securing the perimeter. The real violence happened a few days later. I stopped by unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon to drop off my father's updated heart medication prescription. The house was dead quiet. I walked toward the home office and found Alana hunched over my father's laptop. The screen glowed in the dim room, displaying large international bank transfers. She was funneling money straight from his $1.5 million retirement savings into offshore accounts managed by Hazel. Hazel was Alana's supposed financial advisor, her best friend, and her partner in crime. I stepped into the doorway and told her to step away from the keyboard. Alana slammed the laptop screen shut. The sweet, loving stepmother mask fell off completely. She grabbed a half-empty glass of red wine from the desk and marched right up to my face, her jaw clenched in fury. "Who do you think you are?" she hissed, her breath smelling of alcohol and expensive perfume. "A glorified bedpan cleaner trying to play detective in my house. I could throw you on the street tomorrow, and your pathetic father would just nod and smile." She hurled the wine straight into my face. The dark liquid burned my eyes and stained my uniform. Before I could even raise my hands to wipe it away, she planted both hands on my chest and shoved me backward with all her strength. I lost my footing on the hardwood floor and crashed backward. My ribs slammed violently against the sharp, thick edge of the glass coffee table. Blinding pain shot through my entire left side. I gasped for air, clutching my ribs, fighting the immediate urge to vomit from the impact. Heavy footsteps hurried down the hallway. My father was home early from his golf game. The moment Julian's silhouette appeared in the doorway, Alana executed a flawless, terrifying performance. She slapped herself hard across the cheek, leaving a bright red mark. She dropped to the floor, curled her knees to her chest, and wailed hysterically, burying her face in her hands. "Julian, help me!" she screamed, her voice trembling with manufactured terror. "She is crazy. I just told her to stop asking you for money, and she attacked me. She wants me dead so she can have this house." My father rushed to her side. He dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around her shaking shoulders, cooing soft words of comfort. He then turned and glared at me. He looked at his own daughter, bruised, bleeding, and gasping for breath on the floor, and his eyes were completely dead. There was no love left in them, only disgust. "I am so disappointed in you," he barked, his voice echoing in the small room. "Get out of my house. Right now." I pushed myself up off the floor. Every single breath felt like shattered glass moving inside my chest. I kept my mouth shut. I turned around and walked out the front door into the blinding afternoon sun. He chose his delusion, and he chose his abuser. He thought he was kicking a jealous, a greedy daughter to the curb to protect his fragile new marriage. He had no idea he just banished the only person holding the keys to his financial survival. I sat in the driver's seat of my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. A sharp, burning ache radiated through my ribs. The metallic taste of blood sat heavy on my tongue from biting the inside of my cheek. She thought I was just a naive, desperate daughter who would cry in the driveway and beg for my father's attention. She forgot the fundamental reality of my life. I save lives for a living. When a patient comes into the trauma bay bleeding to death, I do not waste time crying over the wound. I find the hidden source of the hemorrhage, I clamp the artery, and I neutralize the threat. Right now. Alana was a massive hemorrhage draining my family's legacy. I was about to clamp the artery permanently. Confronting my father with words was useless. He was entirely brainwashed, addicted to the illusion of late-life romance. I needed a trap. I needed a lure so irresistible that Alana's own bottomless greed would force her to expose herself. I drove straight to a 24-hour print shop across town. I pulled out my laptop and began drafting a single, highly official-looking document. The bold heading at the top read, "Transfer of Authority, $40 million Grandfather Trust." The text beneath it was a masterpiece of flawless legal fiction. It explicitly stated that if Julian signed the paper with a third-party witness present, total and irreversible control of the $40 million would transfer directly to him and his legal spouse. The truth was, the real trust was utterly ironclad. My grandfather was a brilliant, cynical man who understood exactly how money rotted people from the inside out. Decades ago, he locked that $40 million under my name and my name alone, secured by a team of estate lawyers who updated the fortress every single year. The piece of paper I was printing at the shop was completely worthless. It was a phantom, a ghost document. But to a predator driven by insatiable greed, it looked exactly like a winning lottery ticket. I slipped back into my father's house the next morning after I watched their car leave for their weekly country club brunch. I walked into the home office, ignoring the lingering smell of Alana's perfume. I left the fake document sitting in plain sight, perfectly centered on his mahogany desk, right next to it, tucked inside the dense foliage of a decorative potted fern. I placed a tiny, high-definition, motion-activated camera. Later that afternoon, I sat in the hospital break room. My phone buzzed with a motion alert. One tap on the screen pulled up the live feed from the home office. Alana strolled into the room, sipping from a crystal water glass. She glanced absently at the desk. She stopped dead in her tracks. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the rug. She snatched the fake document off the wood. Her hands physically shook as her eyes darted frantically across the bold print. $40 million. I could practically see the toxic gears grinding in her head. She pulled her phone from her pocket and dialed with trembling fingers. She put the call on speakerphone. Hazel answered on the second ring. "Hazel, drop everything." Alana breathed, her voice tight with pure, manic adrenaline. "Julian has a secret trust. $40 million. The stupid old fool left the transfer papers right on his desk. He just needs to sign it, and you have to witness it." Hazel's voice crackled through the tiny speaker, sharp and calculating. "If he knows about it, why has he not signed it yet?" "Who cares?" Alana snapped, pacing the floor. "We are going to make him do it. The vow renewal is in 2 days. We will bring him up on stage in front of everyone. We play the devoted family angle. We tell him it is the ultimate proof of his devotion to our new life. I will invite the bank manager and that high-profile notary from your firm to make it totally official on the spot. He will be way too embarrassed to say no in front of all our wealthy friends." Hazel laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound that made my skin crawl. "And then we split it." Alana traced her manicured finger over the fake signature line. "And then we split it. We dump him in that cheap state nursing home facility, and we let his bratty daughter live under a bridge." The screen went dark. A cold, genuine smile spread across my face. She swallowed the bait whole. She thought she was orchestrating the ultimate betrayal, using social pressure to steal a fortune. She was actually building her own public execution platform, and she was paying for the venue with the very money she stole from my father. I closed the application on my phone. I walked to my locker, finished my shift, and went home to pull out the dark blue dress I bought specifically for this occasion. The trap was locked. It was time to go to a party. The string quartet faded out. The low hum of wealthy chatter quieted down. Alana stood at the center of the grand stage, gripping a gold-plated microphone. She dragged my father up the steps by his wrist. He looked exhausted. His shoulders slumped inside his expensive tailored tuxedo. 200 guests turned their attention to the perfect couple. Standing right beside the podium was the notary public Hazel had hired, looking incredibly uncomfortable under the bright spotlights. Alana raised her champagne glass. "Tonight, Julian is proving who his real family is." Her eyes scanned the room, landing directly on me, standing near the back doors. A smug, razor-sharp smile stretched across her lips. "And to those cold, selfish people who constantly try to destroy others' happiness, you will finally learn to stand on your own 2 feet. You will never win against true love." She reached into the podium and pulled out a rich leather folio. She opened it to reveal the fake trust document. She handed my father a heavy gold fountain pen. "Sign this, Julian," she cooed, projecting her voice through the speakers. "Prove your absolute devotion to our future. Sign it right here in front of the notary, so the world knows we are forever." My father took the pen. His hand hovered over the paper. He looked trapped, confused by the sudden legal ambush disguised as a romantic gesture. I stepped away from the wall. I did not run to the soundboard. I did not hijack a microphone. I simply walked down the center aisle, my heels clicking sharply against the floorboards. 2 uniformed police officers and a financial crimes detective walked right through the double doors behind me, matching my pace. I had handed them a thick binder of offshore bank statements, wire transfer logs, and the audio recording from the nanny camera 3 hours before the party even started. I climbed the stage stairs. Alana's smug smile faltered. She took a step back, her eyes darting from me to the police officers flanking the stage. "What is this?" she hissed, lowering the microphone. "Get out of here, Daisy." Security. I walked right up to the podium. I reached over, took the fake transfer document from my father's trembling hands, and ripped it straight down the middle. I dropped the pieces onto the floor. "Did you really think I would leave a real $40 million document on a desk for a sewer rat to chew on?" I asked, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "The money is in my name. Forever. It has always been in my name. You just swallowed a styrofoam hook." The detective stepped onto the stage. He did not look at the torn fake document. He looked directly at Alana and Hazel, who was trying to slip out the side door. "Alana Brooks," the detective said, his voice completely devoid of emotion. "You are under arrest for felony elder financial abuse and wire fraud." Alana's chest heaved, sweat beaded through her expensive foundation. She glared at me, her face contorting into pure, unfiltered rage. "You are a demon," she shrieked, lunging toward me. The officers moved instantly. They grabbed her by her upper arms, spinning her around and snapping cold steel handcuffs around her wrists. Hazel was already pinned against the wall near the buffet tables by the second officer. My father looked at the torn paper on the floor. He looked at the police officers dragging his screaming wife off the stage. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a terrifying realization. The illusion shattered completely. He finally saw the venomous snake he had invited into his bed. The venue manager signaled the security team to clear a path. The officers hauled Alana down the center aisle, her expensive silk gown tangled around her legs as she thrashed and sobbed uncontrollably. Her elite friends parted like the Red Sea. Not a single person offered a helping hand. Instead, dozens of smartphones went up, camera lenses tracking her every humiliating step. The woman who casually tossed my mother's irreplaceable photo albums into a dumpster was now being discarded as the ultimate social trash of Scottsdale. I walked out into the cool night air, the suffocating weight in my chest finally gone. My father followed me to the parking lot. He looked frail, broken under his own foolishness. His shoulders shook as he stopped near my car. "Daisy," he choked out in a desperate whisper. "I am so sorry. I was completely blind. I let her poison my mind. Please, forgive me." I turned to the man who watched a stranger shove his daughter into a glass table. The man who chose his fear of being alone over my safety. "I forgive you," I said. My voice was completely flat. "But forgiveness does not mean amnesia. You allowed her to treat me like garbage because you were terrified of sleeping in an empty house. You let her erase my mother. Now, you have to go home and live in that house completely alone." I got in my car and drove away, leaving him alone under the streetlights with the pieces of the life he destroyed. 8 months later, the gavel dropped. Sitting in the courthouse, I watched the justice system dismantle Alana. The stern judge had zero patience for theatrical tears. The financial records and audio recordings were undeniable. Alana was sentenced to 6 years in prison, serving a minimum of 4 before parole. Hazel got 5 years for laundering the stolen funds. They were ordered to pay $400,000 to $12,000 in restitution to my father, but in Scottsdale, social death is worse than prison. The country club revoked their memberships. The same socialites who drank their champagne scrubbed Alana from their social media. She became a ghost, erased from the high society she sacrificed her freedom to join. 14 months later, an envelope arrived from the state penitentiary. The shaky handwriting was Alana's. I knew exactly what was inside a masterclass in manipulation: claims of being sorry, loving my father, pulling the family card, and begging for a commissary deposit. A year ago, that letter would have made me shake with rage. Now, it just felt cheap. I carried the unopened envelope to my shredder, fed it through, and listened to the steel blades grind her final words into confetti. Then, I poured a coffee and let the comforting silence settle around me. My life now is quiet but full. My real family are the colleagues and friends who bring genuine laughter to my dining table. There are no eggshells to walk on, no one keeping score, and no performances. Contrasting this peace with my father's chaotic house, I realize how much poison I used to tolerate simply because a relative poured it. My father calls sometimes, I answer, but our conversations remain brief and superficial. He lives in a small apartment now, having sold the house to cover his debts. I protect my peace fiercely. I orchestrated that downfall for one reason: silence in the face of narcissism is never peace, it is permission. Dealing with an abuser playing the victim requires understanding their mind. Alana was a textbook narcissist, running smear campaigns and grooming everyone to believe she was a martyr. She believed that if she cried the loudest, her cruelty would vanish, rewriting reality just by screaming a different version of it. My father represented a dangerous cowardice. Loneliness is a powerful drug. He allowed a monster to attack his own child because he was terrified of eating in a quiet house, choosing the illusion of a perfect marriage over the reality of an abusive one. If you take anything away from my story, let it be these 3 rules. Rule number 1: silence is the loudest answer. Never argue with a narcissist. Don't explain your pain to someone who enjoys causing it. Fighting back with emotion gives them fuel to paint you as unstable. Give them nothing. Hand them the rope. Step back and let their own greed snap their neck. Rule number 2: bystanders are co-conspirators. The people who ask you to tolerate disrespect aren't trying to help you. They are terrified of becoming the target themselves and use you as a human shield. Anyone asking you to endure abuse to make their life easier is an enemy disguised as a friend. You owe them nothing. Rule number 3: boundaries matter more than blood. Loyalty is earned through respect, not inherited by DNA or a marriage certificate. Society says to forgive and forget for family, but that is a toxic lie to keep victims trapped. Walking away from a poisonous relative isn't a failure, it is a rescue mission for your soul. Have you ever had to protect your peace from someone pretending to be the victim? How did you expose their lies? Drop your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, subscribe and join our community. We have more stories like this, because we all need to remember how to fight back without losing our dignity. I am Daisy, and I am finally free.